What's up, YouTube? How's it going? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're at. It is 11 a.m. for me. Well, 10:45 a.m. Nearing the 8 a.m. mark in Moscow, Idaho, which is when Bryan Kohberger is set to appear in court at his preliminary hearing. I'm very confused at all the order in which all this stuff happens, and I just want to preface this entire stream by saying I'm not a legal expert at all. So we're just going to be going through this together. I'm going to be going through different things of what we can expect. Obviously, there's videos out there. There's information out there for the people that are just following this on, what could happen at today's hearing. Specifically, we'll go into this exact kind of timeline of what can happen. We'll watch some videos. But just as a note before we get started, the courtroom is allowing cameras, but they're not allowing live feeds from the courtroom. So this will all take place in roughly 15 minutes. And then probably within the next 15 minutes after that, we're going to be seeing the videos come out of the courtroom. News Nation is going to be there. Brian Entin early this morning at 7:40 a.m., that was for me. So he was there hours ago. Anyways, they're going to have coverage. Multiple networks obviously are there. This is the line that is outside the courthouse, or actually inside the hallway. So this was 40 minutes prior to 8. So this was about 20-ish minutes ago. And so, yeah, there's a fair amount of people there. There will be definitely multiple feeds that we can check out after it's all said and done. But until then, let's say hey to everyone joining. Do you think they will allow cameras during the trial? Holly, I do. I think the trial, there's a chance, what they're saying is that the trial could get moved to Boise. That's what I've been hearing. I've been hearing that they're saying that he might not be able to get a fair trial in Moscow. What do you guys think? Do you think that he would have a fair trial in Moscow? There would be not a neutral site, but Boise would remain at least in the state of Idaho, and they could likely get a different, jury pool, so on and so forth. Let's see. Louise, thank you for being here, and thank you for that. That's a nice comment. Audrey, good morning. Alexis, I'm in school. Alexis, have fun. Kat, wonder if they're going to end up having to move. Yeah, I don't know. That's what I was just saying. I think that there's a possibility of that. We'll just have to see. Elizabeth, how's it going? In Idaho, but not Moscow. We'll see. Lance says Brian Entin will likely go live on Twitter after. Yeah, I completely agree. Which, speaking of Brian Entin, we're going to check out his phone call that he had with Bryan Kohberger's Pennsylvania public defender when he, had his extradition in Pennsylvania, waived extradition to then come back to Idaho. The gag order that's currently in place does not put that public defender into that gag order. So this Jason Labar, this public defender in Pennsylvania, actually did like a 20-minute interview. It's in like 3 separate parts, 15, 20 minutes here on Brian Entin's Twitter. That is one of the things we're going to go through before the hearing is complete, so we can kind of kill some time with that. So we're going to listen to that momentarily. But as you're joining, if you could be so kind as to like and subscribe, that would greatly help push the stream out to the people that have not gotten notifications yet. It's kind of an early stream today. I thought about maybe pushing the stream until, till later this evening. But if you could be so kind as to like that, hit the like button, obviously subscribe if you haven't already and you want to do so. But we already have almost 300 people in here. So clearly there's some people at school, at work, wherever you may be, or just at home wanting to know kind of more about the status of the Bryan Kohberger Idaho case. And even though this is likely going to be a pretty short hearing today, that's what it's expected to be, really short and more of just like a scheduling situation. I think that we're still going to have kind of a better idea of what the future of this trial could look like. So let me go ahead and pull up. Oh, I need to pull this up here real quick. Excuse me. Let me do some housekeeping stuff. Let's see, turn my mic up a little bit. Yeah, okay. So let me do a poll as well. Since we have people in here and we're waiting, I'm going to unpin my current message and I'm going to throw a poll up here. Just since we have people in here, we have people waiting. Do you guys think the trial should be moved to another location? Please let me know. Vote in the poll over there or on mobile, wherever it's at. We'll see what people think about that. Saleo, good to see you. Lady May, hit that like button. Thank you, Lady May. Sherry, good, hello, or Cherry. Susan. Jaxie, at work, at home. Very nice. A lot of working from home. Texas. The only thing I don't like is Boise is a little bit behind in the times. My mom's mother and father and their families are from Idaho, and I don't even like the way they are handling the Daybell case. Oh, okay, I gotcha. Yeah, it would be interesting to see. I mean, with a case like this, though, this is, I don't know. It depends. We just really don't know at this point. I mean, it seems pretty rock solid, at least for the prosecution, but we'll have to see. So we're gonna listen to this in a moment. People were wondering what is going to happen today. I think today we'll likely see them waive his right to a speedy trial. There would be no reason to plead guilty or not guilty. I mean, he'll likely plead guilty. Not guilty. If I had to guess, there would be no sense in pleading not guilty at this point because they haven't even gone into the full collection of evidence. At least, obviously, they haven't. But we just don't know what the defense has in mind or what the prosecution has. The defense will likely want to delay this in an effort to, just push it further into the future. Obviously, as things get say that there's a trial in a year, obviously the public's interest in that area will still be very strong on getting justice in this case. But how many other people will have kind of moved on? I mean, certainly in a year's time, even if we're not talking about it actively on my channel, we're obviously going to tune back in to see what the inevitable, or what the, what's the right word? What the fate of Bryan Kohberger is, and what the, charges are, what the verdict is rather. But also the prosecution could divulge something along the way that helps the defense in the future. So they're going to definitely waive the right, at least I assume. And I think with the preliminary hearing, and you guys may know more about this, but it can also be used to challenge things in the PCA, which I also don't think they'll do because they have so many specific details that are against Bryan and that put Bryan at the house. I mean, we have the DNA evidence on the knife sheath. We have, science does not lie. We have an eyewitness who saw him leaving the house, that was able to match at least one physical attribute of him, his bushy eyebrows. Cell phone data, not only of the time that the murders happened, but the day after in the morning of him in the area of the crime. We have the trash pull near his parents' house all the way in Pennsylvania that matches with a 99% certainty to the knife sheath that was left behind in the house. I mean, there would be no reason for them to challenge anything in the probable cause affidavit today, because they would just play all of their cards. So I don't know. Let me see what you guys are saying about the, it's about 50-50 on whether you guys think he should, if the trial should be moved to another location. Very interesting. Keep voting on that if you haven't already. It's one of those things where I don't necessarily think one thing over another right now. I think it could very well happen in Moscow, but at the same time, the entire town is made up of 20% of the college probably when it's in session. So it's you have a hard time not getting somebody at least pulled from the university. I don't know. We'll see though. All right, let's go ahead and watch this video. This is Brian Enton of News Nation talking with the public defender that was given to, or rather, was it the public? Yeah, the public defender, Jason Labar, that was given to Bryan back in Pennsylvania before coming back to Idaho. Summer 21, thank you for the super sticker. Summer 21, really appreciate that. Amy says grounds for mistrial if it isn't moved, in my opinion. Interesting. Why do so many people named Bryan commit crimes? Seriously. Yeah. Okay. We'll just have to see what happens today. I'm going to play this video. We're going to burn some time. The preliminary hearing or the status or whatever is supposed to be in the next 5 minutes. So we're going to obviously be here waiting for when that is over.
Mr. Labar, when you first met Bryan Kohberger in Pennsylvania, what was your first impression?
When I met Bryan Friday night, the night he was arrested, Bryan was very cordial. He was calm. He was aware of what was going on. He was shocked by the arrest. Is
that loud enough? I feel like it's not coming in super loud on my headphones. It's only coming in through my left ear as well. I'm going to turn my PC up here. Bear with me. It feels kind of quiet. All right, I'm going to turn this up a little bit.
Certainly was easy to talk to, very intelligent, and I really had no issues talking to him.
Did you talk about the details of the case?
When I walked into the room and I shook Bryan's hand, before Bryan could even, I think, say hello, I basically cut him off and said, Bryan, I'm merely your attorney for your extradition. I don't want to know any of the details about the actual facts or circumstances of the case or the allegations against you. That's for your attorney once you get to Idaho to talk about. I'm simply here to talk about the extradition and the elements surrounding the extradition proceedings.
Did you get the sense, because he was getting his PhD in criminology and had his master's, that he had a good understanding of the process more so than like a regular client you may have?
Well, you have to understand the clients that I normally have don't even have a high school education, let alone a degree from a college. So it was much easier to talk to him about how things would proceed and how the hearing would go than my usual clients, being a public defender. But yeah, it was pretty easy to talk to him. He was aware. He did ask questions about how things would go. He wasn't fully aware of the legalese behind the hearing and what would be expected. But I certainly know after explaining it to him, he understood.
Why did you decide to release the information about the Indiana police stops? Because I think we got it from you first that those stops had happened.
I think it is accurate. It came from me. It really just came in conversation with Bryan and his father. I was aware that I was trying to make sure that they knew the date that they came back from Pullman, just to make sure that it establishes that he would have been in and around the area at the time of the incident. Never contested. He had been in Washington State University up until mid-December. But when I talked to his father, he had talked about being stopped on the way home twice by Indiana State troopers, twice back to back. So it's something his father had told the FBI or Idaho State Police or Pennsylvania State Police, whoever interviewed Michael here in Pennsylvania. He had already told that to authorities, so I felt comfortable saying it as part of one of the interviews that I had done, that he had been stopped, because I felt a little suspicious about it, that he may have been followed from Washington State, although I think that has been debunked to some degree.
So when you were representing him in Pennsylvania, and I saw you in court, obviously you had limited information. Then when we got here to Idaho, the probable cause was released. What was your reaction? I'm assuming you've read the 18 pages. What was your reaction to all of that evidence?
I immediately was given the affidavit of probable cause when it was released, if I recall correctly, I'll restate this then, Bryan, so it's clear. I'm just trying to remember who actually gave it to me the second it came out. So I immediately read the affidavit of probable cause. I believe a news media outlet that I had been in touch with sent it to me the second it was released. I read over it 4 times, I think, until I soaked it all in. And obviously what I had read, I now had an understanding of the evidence against him, because I had been working.
Can you imagine just all of a sudden having this Bryan Kohberger as your client, reading through, he said 4 times? That's a 19-page PCA. That's a fairly long probable cause affidavit. I'm obviously not super familiar with, other probable cause affidavits, but what I've been hearing is that it's fairly long, longer than most are. He read through it 4 times. I mean, that's like 80 pages of reading, and like all of a sudden and it's not like he's representing him in trial. Like he's just his extradition, he was just given to him before he came back to Idaho. But can you imagine just like reading through that, all of a sudden having this guy as your client for a short period of time, and then just being like, wow, like I wonder what he thought. Like I imagine maybe he thought this.
Good and bad news. Good news, we got your payment, buddy. Bad news, they gave you life. Sayonara.
That was just a tweet that I saw earlier saying Bryan Kohberger's attorney after reading the affidavit, which...
bad news, they gave you life.
Yeah, I imagine. Then again, there are, even this attorney, the one that was in Pennsylvania, and we'll hear her, later, he talks about the holes that he initially saw in the affidavit. So there could be some holes, obviously, that they're going to try to exploit, but I mean, it's really difficult, I feel like, to try to, there's just a lot on him. So I feel like it's going to be difficult to avoid some of these blatant things like a knife sheath in the house. I mean, unless they can prove that he was in the house prior and would, show up to the house at other occasions. But what we're seeing right now is that there was no real evidence of connections to any of the victims with Bryan prior to this. Okay, it's 11:01. Guys, it's 11:01 inside the courtroom right now in Moscow, Idaho. They are likely recording the preliminary status. Thank you guys for being here. What was I going to say? Oh, 480 of you guys. If you, to the reminder to the people who have just been joining, be sure to hit that like button. Thank you guys for being here this morning. Hello to the mods. We have some different mods. We have Keith in here. Hello, Keith. We have Alicia. Big shout out to the mods today for showing up. And yeah, I'm seeing a lot of familiar faces. Honey Wheels, thank you for the Venmo donation, by the way. I really appreciate that. Also, I forget, hometown, we're from the same area. I will be doing a screening. I'm working the details out, but I'll be doing a screening of the documentary in Kansas City, likely. So stay on the lookout for that. If you're a Kansas City person, I can't remember Honey Wheels, but thank you so much for that dono. I'll have more information on that soon too, guys, for people that may be in that area. Aaron, his PA lawyer only seen the papers after like others have. Oh, okay. Thank you, Mohawk. That's a good point. I guess I'm more speaking about his current, public defender in Idaho, which we have a whole nother thing on that with, I'll get to it, but as far as like budgets with public defenders and so on and so forth, but let's go ahead and finish this video. I'm going to be refreshing News Nation to make sure that we are seeing the video coming out of the courtroom as soon as it does. But until then, we will keep watching these videos. Also, Brian Enton, guys, can we just talk about, like, does he ever sleep? Like, I can't imagine, like, what kind of job description, like, he knew, what he was signing up for with this job. You're a reporter, but like, I feel like there are certain people that clearly are going above and beyond. And maybe it's just because he's following a lot of these cases. There's clearly other reporters that follow other things, not just like kind of true crime and these types of things. There are incredible sports reporters and so on and so forth. But like, my gosh, this guy he's up before the sun. He is clearly up late at night. This is last night when he had this interview. Shout out to Brian Enton of News Nation. Also, everyone else that's been covering this. They've been doing an incredible job.
In the blind the entire time. I read over it 4 times, I think, until I soaked it all in. And obviously what I had read, I now had an understanding of the evidence against him because I had been working in the blind the entire time because I didn't have access to the affidavit of probable cause or know anything about the facts and evidence that they had against them to verify the arrest.
What was your reaction, though? Were you surprised by the amount of evidence? Did you think it was solid?
I stated a couple times to other individuals and other outlets that the way I would classify it, based upon my experience doing this for 17 years, read about 2025 homicide affidavits of probable cause at least, and represented several homicides, capital homicides through trial. I wasn't too surprised. I thought it was a strong circumstantial case that had holes and that could be exposed by a competent, good defense attorney like Attorney Taylor, I felt.
What would you say the biggest holes are?
I have been talking about like the biggest evidence and going step by step, because defense is going to attack each part of the evidence separately, really, because the Commonwealth's case is really based upon circumstantial evidence. There's no direct evidence against Bryan. So their case is in the whole, whereas defense will be attacking each piece of evidence.
I mean, the DNA is pretty, I mean, they said like 99 point whatever % chance or match to the sheath. Like that's, I don't know. That feels pretty much spot on and directed at Bryan, not just circumstantial, but I don't know.
Visually, I believe. At least that would be my trial strategy. So if you talk about the sheath being found in the room, you have DNA recovered from the button of the closure of the sheath. What you can say about that is it's transferred DNA, it's touch DNA. That DNA could be on there. Nobody knows how long, if undisturbed. Certainly it could be a year, it could be longer. Experts going to testify that obviously it was placed on there because Bryan touched it, but they can't say when he touched it. Now, there could be additional evidence that comes out about that sheath. One being, it could be actual DNA on it. The state police executed a search warrant of Bryan's blood when they were here in Pennsylvania, and we don't know if that's additional evidence that may come out if there's unidentified blood on the sheath. In addition to the sheath, the knife itself obviously not found, but we don't have the results of the autopsy, so we don't know if it's consistent with a straight edge weapon or not. Certainly that would change my feelings about the affidavit of probable cause too.
Okay, so that's video number 1 of 3, part 1 of 3 that Bryan had with Jason LaBar, Bryan's public defender that was given to him in Pennsylvania. We're going to go through the second one in a moment. I'm going to end this poll. So you guys are pretty split on whether the trial should be moved. Most of you, or 55% of you, are saying that no, it should not be moved to another location. So we'll just have to see what happens. I'm going to go ahead and end this poll, though. Thank you guys for voting on that. Okay, so real quick, a little bit of an update. Well, not an update at all, but Bryan has tweeted 19 minutes ago that he was heading through security into the Kohberger hearing. Live tweeting is also not allowed. Obviously, they are going to update afterwards. There are cameras that are allowed in the courtroom. As a reminder, they are not allowed to live stream from the courtroom. So I have got News Nation pulled up on my second monitor here. As I'm refreshing it, I'm seeing that they have not posted anything yet. So we will keep just watching these videos and kind of waiting for the news to come out of the courtroom. Real quick, though, which, I mean, the knife sheath thing to me is so, it's like, why they're going to need to give a reason why that knife is there. Like, he's kind of ruling it off as like not important evidence, but I feel like it's super important. I came across some stuff in a recent Twitter post, I think it was, that someone was giving this wild theory about like, what if there's so many, what if there's a ton of stuff that Bryan did in the lead up to this to confuse, like maybe there's way more that he did that was smart to confuse, to throw a wrench in things in the trial, rather. Like, for instance, is there a history of him allowing himself, to rent his vehicle to strangers? There's sites like Turo, which I've actually used. I used it in Vancouver this last time I was there to rent a car for a trip. And you can essentially like type in a location and people, it's almost like Airbnb where you give access to your home. You give access to things like your car. There's different garage services as well where you can rent out your garage for a period of time or a parking spot. What if and I don't think this happened, but like, what if there was a long history of Bryan in the lead up to this renting his car out on an app like Turo? Like, imagine if he was like in his head thinking, I'm going to do this, I'm going to commit this crime, but I'm going to have 6 months of a history of renting my car out to people. And then that'll confuse people because, well, if the car was seen in the area, that wouldn't obviously explain for the cell phone data matching up. But there's interesting things like that I've come across. Also, the food delivery situation. We know that Xana ordered DoorDash. That's one of the biggest things to me. It's like, I'm very interested to think or to know like how that all went down. If the DoorDash employee is going to be an expert, if they're going to be a witness in this. Did he see Bryan in that area or see anything suspicious? Some people thought maybe because it is common in bigger cities for people to rent cars and then use them as Ubers. So they rent a car, but then they use it all day to make money on a thing like Uber. One could do that for Postmates. You could rent a car. It seems counterproductive depending on how much money you'd make, because you'd think that the money spent on renting that car, you'd have to make quite a bit back on a thing like Postmates. And in a town like Moscow, where it's a fairly large city with college students using Postmates, but I don't think you could make that money back to justify renting a car. But people are just thinking like, what if he wasn't there at all? But I don't believe that. I mean, I believe they have strong evidence with not only the witness, Dylan, the roommate, but also the knife sheath. Why would the knife sheath be there, right? So anyways, stuff that is still worth mentioning. I'm going to go ahead and go through the second of the 3 videos here. And keep in mind, I am looking on my second monitor to see if they have anything coming out of the courtroom yet. So let me read some of your guys' comments, though. Rodriguez says, in my opinion, Mogan was the target. JDZ, I thought that very same thing. Also consider that Bryan actually ordered that DoorDash to gain access to the house. Interesting. We don't know yet exactly if Madison's like DoorDash. I mean, did they say that I know that they said that they had activity of her TikTok account, but you could technically DoorDash something to any address and it could just show up. So imagine he just orders this DoorDash, but then again, he would have had Xana's name, so that would have been, I mean, because it was written, at least if that was the same DoorDash on that photo, Xana's name was written on it. Interesting thought, though. Interesting thought. Who paid the DoorDash, Xana or another third party? Vivian, I don't know. That's the thing. If we could see that, Xana's account legitimately logged in and ordered that DoorDash, then it would have been her credit card or whatever card she has linked on her account. Darla, good to see you. Thank you for being here. Saleo, yes, but the context of walking through the scene upon first arrival, that's how I took it. Maybe some layover. Tammy, what did Tammy say? Saleo's responding to Tammy. Tammy, I also later noticed that what appeared to be a tan leather sheath laying to the bed next to Mogan's right side. Oh, quoting the probable cause affidavit, yeah. The knife sheath was found near Madison. Yeah, Alyssa. Bryan has no connection to the kids, at least what we think. He has no connection to the kids, so why would the sheath be in that house? We don't know also, because they have also said that they don't believe that Bryan has any connection with the victims at all, like personally, that they've found. However, one thing to keep in mind, anyone can create an Instagram account with just about any name and use just about any profile picture. We've seen that with other cases, such as the Delphi case and the Anthony Schatz Snapchat account. And you could essentially still be reaching out to these people, and it may not be directly tied back to Bryan. He could have used a super detached email from what he normally uses. There could be a lot of digital evidence eventually that they may have found on his computer that shows him at least communicating with these girls online, that shows that he was still in connection or connected with them in some way, and then eventually like leading to the stalking or whatever. But so far it doesn't seem like there's any indication of them knowing him. Natalie is saying next date is for June 26th, 9 a.m. Natalie, thank you. I am going to refresh Bryan Enton's Twitter right now, and we're going to see if that is the case, if he is out. Yep, Bryan Kohberger's preliminary hearing has been set for June 26th at 9 a.m. He was in court today in an orange T-shirt and told the court he waived his right to a speedy preliminary hearing, no bail. So exactly what we thought. And then, of course, Rachel down here on Twitter saying, all of us reading June 26th. That is the reality of these cases. June 26th, how far in advance is that? 6 months? Hey Siri, how many days from now is June 26th?
I found this on the web for Hey Siri, how many days from
Okay.
now is...
She couldn't just say it, but it's 165 days, 7 hours and 59 minutes and 55 seconds until June 6th. So 165 days, right? 165 days until his preliminary hearing, right? Waived his right to a speedy preliminary hearing. That's a bummer, right? Because it's like they've got the gag order on the case. There's going to be very little that comes out. Now, the real question is how many more people are going to be coming out of the woodworks that either knew Bryan or had some sort of relationship with Bryan that we could better get an idea of potential motive if there was, or is something going to slip? Like, you never know if something could slip up from that search warrant that was conducted, the search that was conducted at his apartment. Obviously, all of that is sealed. I personally think they found some serious evidence in the house, in his apartment, but we'll just have to see. Mohawk Mom says 5.5 months. Yeah, I don't even know what to say. We're going to definitely pull up the videos. Real quick, though, I found this. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen this as well, but the video of this man right here that's walking through, let me scroll back. This guy right here that's walking through the vigil, they did end up finding that guy in a separate video. And so that's debunked. This is clearly that guy. He's got the exact same hairline. We can't quite tell that he has glasses on in this, but he's got these really thin frames. But you can almost see the white shirt underneath this blue hoodie or blue jacket. He's got a similar look to Bryan, but clearly this is not Bryan. I'm going to go ahead and play this real quick while I read some of your guys' comments. I came across this interesting video as well.
In the beginning, most of us believed the two surviving roommates, Bethany and Dylan, were
loud.
sleeping on the first floor. Since then, we've learned Dylan was sleeping here on the second floor, along with Xana and Ethan located here. Kaylee and Madison were located here on the third floor. The dog was located on the third floor and the room by itself.
So I'm going to pause it real quick and I'm going to bring in our Mr. Red Circle here. So this circle is circling where roommate Dylan was at, okay? We've always thought that the surviving roommates were down here in one of these two first floor bedrooms. Ethan and Xana, obviously, over here on the second floor as well, on that middle floor, the same floor that the kitchen's on. The dog up here on this floor, on the third floor, on the far right room, if you're looking at the front of the house. And then Maddie and Kaylee up here at this house here. All right, I'm going to pull up the video from the courtroom while we finish this video.
Let's move around and see through the walls, into the kitchen, to the back slider, and take a look at the time frames. At 4:04 a.m., the suspect can be seen trying to park his car. At 4:09, approximately 5 minutes later, he enters the house through the back slider. At 4:18, he leaves the house after committing the crimes. At 4:20, he's caught on camera driving away at a high rate of speed. All of this only took 9 minutes. Let's watch what that looks like. The suspect enters through the back sliding door. The first bedroom he stops at and opens the door, he sees no one there. He continues to the next bedroom. Here we know what happens. Downstairs, Dylan is sleeping. The noise from upstairs wakes her up. She thinks it's Kaylee playing with her dog. She gets up and goes to the door and looks out. She sees nothing there. The suspect then continues down the stairs about 3 minutes later. He then heads to Xana's room. Outside, there's a security camera picking up some whimpering, cries, and a thud at 4:17. We've learned that Xana was found on the floor, which might explain the thud. Dylan again hears something and looks outside her door. She sees the suspect. He walks right past her and leaves.
Oh, I love how TikTok's just cut off so abruptly. Sorry if that was loud at the beginning. I had everything turned up for the Bryan video. Now I'm just bummed. It's like I get that the process takes a long time, a fair amount of time, but it's like this dude's just gonna sit. The thing is he's sitting in local jail, I imagine, until trial, right? Like I came across a thing talking about the difference between prisons and jails. So hopefully, if he is the one who did this, he's sitting in a pretty crappy system, a pretty crappy jail. Prisons, I've heard certain prisons can have pretty cushy rules, and you get like these little tablets and TV, and it's like more long-term situations. Jail can be, 1 to 2 years probably max is what I've heard. And oftentimes is a rougher situation. So hopefully, if he is the one who did this, he has a rough 5.5 months. I imagine, just thinking about the last 11 to 12 days, him sitting with his thoughts, that's it, for the last 12-ish days or however long he's been in custody. That's a fair amount of time for reality to set in for him. So I imagine that things, even for him, like the idea of June 26th is probably just like, holy cow, this sucks. I guess they slept together because they felt something was off. Saleo, also, I believe one of the roommates, I think Kaylee, was in the process of moving. So there's a possibility that Kaylee's room was in disarray. Maybe her bed was taken apart. Who knows? We don't know the situation. Maybe they were... maybe something was off. If there was a situation where they felt like they were being stalked or whatever the case may be, maybe that's why they were staying in the same room. But then again, you would probably let your roommates know, hey, we're really uncomfortable. We feel like there may be somebody that's watching us. And then once again, like, no forced entry apparently to the house. So like, did he just walk right in? Was this house unlocked a lot of the times? Like, it's hard to say. But there's a number of reasons why they could have been sleeping in the same bed. One of which that a lot of people point to is the fact that she could have, there could have been a mess in Kaylee's room from moving. Okay, so I don't know if this is from today or if this is an old photo, but this person tweeted, Bryan Kohberger hearing is over. His preliminary hearing, where we will learn a lot of info, is set for June 26th. He waived his right to a speedy trial. Still no bail. So same thing that Brian... Oops, the circle's still going. Same thing that Brian Enton just told us in his tweet. It's just, June 26th. Teresa, the video you had up, the other where the house was lit up, you need to do another like that, please. People need to see it from his POV and D's. Are you speaking about this 3D view, Teresa? This is the 3D view. So, for example, we can go through this briefly. Let's see. This would be the basement or the main level floor on the first floor. So when we're looking at the outside of the house, that is the door that we'd be looking at. This is where you would enter, the front door. This is where we always thought the surviving roommates were, on this main level. But we now know that on this floor here is where half of the murders took place. Ethan and Xana would have been in this bedroom down here, bedroom 2B. This is the living room. This is the latent footprint that was leaving that they have that walked right past Dylan, who would have been in this bedroom here. He would have walked past and out the sliding glass door here, obviously up the stairs and around. We'd have Kaylee and Maddie where they were found, and then the dog found in bedroom 3B. So once again, last time I didn't do this, but Kaylee would have been in this room here. Oh, wow. Interesting. They updated it to where if Kaylee was in the doorway with her light off, she would have been looking out, and Ethan and Xana's bedroom would have been around this corner, and then he would have walked, whoever she saw, walked towards her. She's peering through the cracked door. And then obviously we know that he left out the sliding glass door. It's very, very dark, but they updated this for the sake of accuracy or potential accuracy. So if that's what you're talking about, Teresa, yeah, the rooms were apparently lit up. This is with it dark. This is very interesting. But yeah, obviously they did a good job with this, showing the different, through the window, the good vibes art piece here, and then this painting right here that they have photos of in front of. So yeah, we'll see. Nina Smith, why no trial for Richard Allen? Yeah, the Richard Allen thing, I need to revisit that and see what's going on with the Delphi case. But it's kind of crazy to think that they haven't scheduled something for Richard Allen yet. Like, I'm very confused with that whole situation. Xana was awake. I don't think the lights were out. Yeah, I think that there's a possibility. I mean, Xana was awake, probably mostly in her room. Although if Ethan was already heading to sleep, we don't know the situation. But there's a chance that she was taking her trash back to the kitchen. Obviously, we have this photo here of the sink. So this is a photo of what looks like a Postmates delivery bag. So maybe she came down here, and as Bryan was coming down to leave after maybe he went upstairs first, Xana could have been on her way from the kitchen back to her room, and then things took a turn for the worse. Long Crime has a live cam on his status. Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to pull it up now.
One.
All right, we are going to... Oh, wow, he's got marks on his face. All right.
Okay. Okay, so we were waiting for Mr. Kohberger to enter the room for this status hearing. Bobby, now I can ask you my question that I was going to ask you. I might have to cut you off if we hear this. This is from Postcards from Protest on YouTube. Killing someone with a knife is a very messy way of killing, and this killer killed 4 people that way. There's no way there's no forensic cross-contamination. There's got to be more, right? There's got to be more evidence there.
Well, yeah, that's 2 different questions, really. Cross-contamination is a term we use to say that, you know, the DNA from one person, the forensic material from one person.
Okay, I'm gonna scroll back. Hold on. I'm gonna zoom in on this. I don't know if he's picking at potential like acne or face, like marks on his face, but that right there. We'll get our friendly little circle here. That right there is a very small scratch. We'll get to see it better later. I don't know. Is he getting roughed up in the county jail, or is he scratching his own face?
The DNA from one person, the forensic material from one person is combined with another.
All right, so Bobby, we'll pick this up on the other side. Let's jump in and listen to the status hearing.
Right, good morning. We are on the record.
29222805. This is State of Idaho versus Bryan Kohberger. Mr. Kohberger is in custody. He is appearing here in court with his attorneys, Ms. Taylor, Mr. Logsdon, Mr. Thompson, Ms. Jennings appearing on behalf of the state. This is the time set in the matter for the preliminary hearing status conference. So I am going to inquire of counsel. Ms. Taylor, what's the status at this time?
Thank you, Your Honor. We are going to ask the court to set preliminary hearing out into June. We would request the 3rd or 4th week of June and probably 4 or 5 days for preliminary hearing. Mr. Kohberger understands his right to a timely preliminary hearing, and he's willing to waive the timeliness to allow us time to obtain discovery in this case and be prepared.
And Mr. Thompson, are you in agreement with that?
The state has no objection to that, Your Honor. Ms. Taylor reached out to us by email yesterday with her proposal. On reflection, the state's calendar would be better in the month of July, but we will make the end of June work if that's the court's preference. And I haven't had a chance to talk to Ms. Taylor about that. I'm sorry, I know that's last minute.
That's okay. The court's calendar is going to be better towards the end of June, early July. So would that work, Ms. Taylor, for your scheduling on your other matters?
Your Honor, yes. If we take that 4th week in June, that's actually best.
Okay. So, Mr. Kohberger, I need to speak to you for a moment then. Sir, you do understand, and Ms. Taylor has represented here, that she's advised you of your right to have, or fully discussed with you the right that you have, which is to have your preliminary hearing within 14 days of the date that you initially appeared before this court. As you recall, when I advised you of your rights, that hearing is a probable cause hearing where the state has to establish that more likely than not, these felony offenses were committed and you were the one that committed the felony offenses. If you waive your right to a speedy preliminary hearing, it does not mean that you're giving up your right to have a preliminary hearing. It simply means that you would not be able to come back and challenge that the state did not present probable cause within 14 days. Do you understand?
Yes.
Have you had enough time to speak with Ms. Taylor about your decision to waive your right to a speedy preliminary hearing?
Yes.
Do you need any additional time to do so?
No.
Then I will ask at this time, as to the 5 counts, felony counts that were charged in the criminal complaint that was filed on December 29th of 2022, are you waiving your right to a speedy preliminary hearing and agreeing that that hearing can be held outside the 14-day period?
Yes.
And Ms. Taylor, do you concur with his waiver?
I do, Your Honor. Thank you.
I will find your waiver of speedy preliminary hearing is knowing, intelligently, voluntarily entered here in open court with the assistance of counsel. We will go ahead and set the matter for preliminary hearing. Beginning Monday, June 26th at 9:00 a.m. And I will go ahead and reserve the week, so June 26th to June 30th, in the event that we need all 5 days for presentation of evidence. And just so counsel knows, it will begin at 9 a.m. each of those days. Is there anything further to address at this time in the case, Mr. Thompson?
Not from the state's perspective, Your Honor, no.
All right. Or Ms. Taylor?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Kohberger, then you will be remanded into custody on your same no bail at this point in time, pending further proceedings. Again, we'll send notice out to counsel, and we will be in recess for this morning.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
So that's Bryan Kohberger leaving the courtroom this morning. This is the from the hearing this morning. Obviously, they weren't live in the courtroom, but they were able to film, and we're now seeing what went on. I don't know why I said, oh, did someone already rough him up? He's been, from my understanding, even in the county court, or the jail there, he's been isolated. So they're protecting him at all costs, because obviously he's a huge, they cannot let anything happen to him. It's a massive case, so on and so forth. Those are likely scratches from, from a razor or something like that. I saw some of your guys' comments come through saying prison razors and jail razors are often not the highest of quality. But, looking at his skin in this photo, unless, Insider decided to glam it up, it's pretty decent. So I don't know if he's, scratching his own skin, that kind of thing, maybe nervously scratching his own skin, or it's all from a razor. Yeah, stress as well, Katrina. Who knows? Lindsay says that's a heck of a shadow halfway down his throat. Yeah, it could just be the lighting. I was looking at that as well. I don't think that there's, I don't know. I think that he's likely not being messed with, and he's probably not necessarily self-inflicting. I don't know. Do they still have him in the suicide vest? Even here? I don't know. Or is he on full watch? What is, I wonder what the status is on that. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and see what people are saying on the old Twitter here. Juliet says, June is not far away, people. Calm down. Don't be surprised if it gets delayed longer. This is a good thing and gives both sides more time to prepare. I'm sure law enforcement is still going through tips and evidence. We want justice for the Idaho 4. Yeah, obviously, this time isn't just going to potentially benefit the defense, Bryan. It benefits everyone. It sucks that it's this long, it's this far in advance. June will be here before we know it, obviously, but still half a year almost. But it's the prosecution is absolutely, they have the exact same amount of time between now and June 26th to continue to get character witnesses as well, witnesses that knew him, that could potentially point to potential motive. Obviously, they took his computer. There's a lot of stuff they have. I am so interested to see what they come with. Same thing with the defense. How confident really is he at this point to prove his innocence? Is he really confident that they're going to be able to? I don't know. We'll just have to see. I'm sure that there is rights to a documentary already being worked through to be there at that courtroom and shoot it and shoot the lead up to it as well. I'm sure at this point it's a big enough story. There's probably and I saw someone saying something about the probable cause or the sealing, the gag order on the case is up until March. That will likely just get pushed, I assume. I don't know how that works, but if the gag order all of a sudden is lifted in March, then we're going to have a 3-month period or 4-month period in which, things could slip out, I guess. But I would imagine that they are just going to push the gag order further. Debbie says he trimmed his eyebrows down. Yeah, I don't know if he did, but we're just seeing that kind of side view. But yeah, anyways, let me read some of your guys' comments here. Why are people treating this dude like he did it? Well, Emperor, they found a knife sheath with his DNA on it next to one of the victims. His cell phone data is pinged in the area 12 times leading up to the murders. His cell phone data has been recorded and reported to have been traveling towards the location of the crimes in the time frame that they happened. They pulled trash from the neighbor of his parents' house over 2,000 miles away and matched it to the knife sheath that was found near the victims. I think there's a lot of reasons why people think he is their guy. So obviously everyone is innocent until proven otherwise, and is, should be given a fair trial. But I think that there's a strong reason why people believe he's the guy. The search warrant, yeah, I'm interested in the search warrant on his apartment. If it's sealed until March 30th, if I remember right. Yeah, I think the March thing is what I've read as well. So we'll have to just see if that becomes unsealed. I have no idea, but we'll see. Marie Louise, thank you. Thank you so much. Jaxie, thank you. Let's see. All evidence they found will be interesting. Yeah, I mean, I'm very excited to see what they end up finding. Very likely he is guilty, but holding judgment till all info is out. Yeah, I mean, we can ride the sus bus all the way until June 26th, with Bryan being our main person that we are absolutely sus of, because he's currently the only person that we can be incredibly sus of until somebody else is brought forward or they find some other suspect potentially with a reason a connection to this crime. Bryan is the number one sus in most of our eyes. He is absolutely the one that we will be riding the sus bus for. But until something else comes out, that's the only thing I can think of, that's the only thing that we have rather. DJ All says, so where is the knife? That's a good question. I mean, did they find the knife in the house? Did they find a knife along the potential route that he went on after the crimes took place? I mean, we have to keep in mind the day after the homicides took place, he was in his house in Pullman, near the University of Washington, or Washington State. He went back towards the area in which the crimes took place. He went back towards his apartment, and then later in the day, hours later, was down in the town of Clarkston. They saw him at the Albertsons getting groceries. They saw him near Kate's Cup of Joe. And then there was a 3-hour period from 5:36 to 8:30 p.m., right down here, that the phone stops reporting to a network. So in that 3-hour period between being in Clarkston and then him reporting back to his apartment in Pullman, did he ditch the knife somewhere along there? Over the next several months, are they gonna search for that knife? I mean, are they gonna run along the Snake River with a magnet to just hope that they could maybe find a K-bar style knife that would connect Bryan to the crime? Who knows? The knife is a big deal, and obviously a lot of people are thinking that it's long gone. Who knows? Maybe he ditched it on the drive all the way home back to Pennsylvania. Suspect vehicle 1, is there suspect vehicle 2? If not, why call it 1? I think that's standard to label it as 1, even if there's not technically a 2. But there could be more things in the future. Who knows? I don't think that they have another suspect vehicle, but I think it's standard to list it like that, if I'm not wrong. Defense needs to create enough reasonable doubt that this guy walks like Casey Anthony. That's pretty scary if he did it. I mean, they're going to have to give a reason as to why he would be in that house. Why would the knife sheath with his DNA be in that house? There's going to be a lot that they need to prove. Anyways, okay. So in addition to that, there is, let's see. I think I mentioned this in the last live stream, but the reasoning why we've always thought that the two downstairs roommates, or the two surviving roommates, were asleep downstairs, they would not want to let that out. Law enforcement, say like a week after the murders, for example, they would never say, oh, we also have a surviving roommate that was on the second floor who saw the man, walk past. He had bushy eyebrows, whatever. Like, they would never release that information because it would spook Bryan or whoever did this, also probably putting the surviving housemate in danger because she is a surviving witness. She is a key witness who saw him. So I think we've always been assuming that the surviving roommates were in the lower level of the house down here, but that's just because I think that was just the initial just reporting, is that the two surviving roommates were likely downstairs. DNA in these cases gets tossed a lot because of possibility DNA transfer. But even DNA transfer would still have to, I don't know. I know what you're saying. DNA can get tossed pretty easily, but there's still, to transfer to that knife sheath, it's like there still needs to be a reason why the DNA transfer happened. XOXO, I think he watched the DoorDash cam and broke in after. Yeah, I think a lot of people agree with you. There's a strong possibility of that. He was arrogant enough to go back and look at the crime scene. I bet he kept it as a trophy. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people think there's a chance maybe he thought the next day, oh snap, I accidentally left the knife sheath. Maybe there's a possibility I dropped it near the car. And maybe he was going back at that point to look for it, or he was just going back to see if law enforcement had arrived at that point at, 9:30 in the morning. Between 9 and 9:21 a.m. he was back in the area of the homicides. I hope the DNA is under some fingernails. Yeah, that's a whole nother thing. Like, I believe they said something about bagging the hands. I mean, there's a strong chance that the victims have defense wounds. With the defense wounds, if there were any, there was likely also DNA underneath this, the fingertips, the fingernails rather, on the fingertips. So that would obviously be a massive piece of evidence. You couldn't really explain why that would be there. The defense would have a hard time with that for sure, in my opinion. So another thing I came across was the AT&T plan for criminals. On Reddit, this person says, we recently learned from a court affidavit that Bryan's phone was from AT&T and was subscribed to Bryan Kohberger at an address in Pennsylvania. An account has been created, and the account had been created since June of 2022. You know what also happened in June? He left DeSales University after graduation in cloud-based forensics. He knew he was going to Washington, so why did he even register his phone in Pennsylvania? Which, registering your phone, I mean, I registered my phone thousands of miles away from where I'm currently living. I mean, my network provides service to the entire country. So it's not like you need to register your phone necessarily where you're going to be living. But the idea that he got a new phone is a little bit weird. Like, why would he get a new phone? Did he have a separate account? Maybe he was on his parents' account, and then at this point he's hopping off his parents' account. We really don't know. But it is an interesting thing. So June, he gets a new phone. Why did the affidavit tell us Bryan obtained his cellular service? That's a really random detail to add in, unless, of course, it's not random at all. 12 times he started to show up around their house at odd hours of the night and early morning, except for the one occasion. November 2022, Bryan submitted his application to the Pullman Police Department after his June 2022 graduation in cloud-based forensics. One would suspect he knows all about cloud-based forensics, considering he graduated from that and psychology. One would also assume he didn't use his own vehicle too, but I digress. Or he wouldn't use his own vehicle. Yeah, that's another thing. I think a lot of people are talking about giving this guy too much credit for his education and his background. Just because he studied criminology or criminal behavior, whatever his main study was, doesn't mean he's going to be good at getting away with criminal behavior and getting away with crimes. So if this, I think that we could be giving Bryan too much credit. Ted Bundy went into dorms, murdered 4 women, and another came home. He bumped into her as running. Yeah, there's some similarities with the Ted Bundy situation for sure. Abby, I can only understand if it was only the knife sheath or the cell phone pings or the footage of the car on CCTV, but all of it combined, it's pretty damning evidence, plus whatever else they have. Yeah, I mean, guys, a 19-page affidavit with literally like 4 different sets of reasoning as to why they were able to get the arrest warrant and arrest him on these and charge him on the, arrest him for these crimes. The DNA evidence, the witness in the house that gave a description of one of his attributes, the bushy eyebrows, cell phone data, the trash in Pennsylvania, 2,000 miles away, matching. It's a lot stacked on when you think about it. Let's see. I feel like that there's some people in the chat that are kind of being combative, but maybe they're just having general discussion. Let's try to just be nice to each other in the chat. If I don't know, maybe I'm reading into it wrong. It's hard for me to always read into what's going on with the chat. But if you guys are having a healthy discussion, that's completely fine. But if you guys are not enjoying yourself, or you're just arguing with one another, maybe find something else to do. Abby, thank you so much. I appreciate that, Abby. We're going to quickly listen to the other 2 videos from Bryan Enton from last night with Bryan's, too many Bryans, by the way, with Kohberger's Pennsylvania public defender, Jason LaBar. So Jason LaBar, being in Pennsylvania, does not fall under the Idaho gag order that is currently being issued for law enforcement and people around this case to not talk about the case. Jason LaBar did an interview with Bryan Enton last night of News Nation and was able to give out some interesting information around the case. So this is kind of cool because there's so many people that have to remain quiet about the case, but here we have Bryan Enton talking with his public defender, and he's giving us some really interesting information. So anyways, if you haven't already, hit the like button. I know there's a lot of people that are kind of hopping off because obviously we have kind of the information that we have. This has gotten pushed to June 26th. But if you are going to be hopping off, don't forget to hit that like button on your way out and subscribe if you've enjoyed the video.
You have mention of a van's footprint in the affidavit of probable cause. They don't match that with Bryan. I would say that I reviewed I think it's at least one video of a previous encounter of the police at the home of the victims, where the individual who answers the door is actually in a pair of vans. I know I saw that, and I pointed that out last time I saw it, because that's what was interesting about that to me in the affidavit of probable cause. Now, again, it could come back that Bryan has a pair of vans that could possibly match that. Talk about the vehicle. The vehicle's interesting because, there is no direct evidence that it's Bryan's vehicle. They used the cell phone pings, tower pings, to link the vehicle to its whereabouts the night close to the home. They use that to track it, allegedly. But there's really no evidence that it's still Bryan's vehicle. You have the license plate on the back, not on the front. I understand that, but I'm sure it's still not the only white Hyundai Elantra 2011 to 2016 that would match that description in the area. And you have no one that places Bryan behind the wheel of the vehicle. So again, another hold in regards to that, because you can't verify that he's the one driving the vehicle.
But they don't have to put all of that in the probable cause, though, right? Could they know that?
No, absolutely not. This is just holes that I got from the affidavit of probable cause that the prosecution could clearly clear up, right? And really, you anticipate it as defense counsel that they're going to have additional evidence to clear this up. The one that's going to be difficult is the cell phone tower pings, though, found to clear up, because Bryan's phone was off from approximately, I think it's 2:30 to 4:30 or 4:45. I don't know the exact times. And cell phone tower pings, we like to call it, as defense counsel, junk science, not exact science. The cell phone tower ping is that when you send a signal out, it pings off of a tower. When it hits that tower, it creates a radius as to where you could be placed around that tower. Now, this was approximately, as the crow flies, 8 miles away, I believe, and cell phone tower ping information usually is a 20-mile radius. That's how the expert is going to testify. The only way to get around that is if there's GPS evidence. Now, so when he turned his phone on, or right before he turned it off, you're going to have GPS evidence up until the point likely of that in a second.
The GPS evidence is going to, if Bryan is the one who did this, the GPS evidence is going to be the thing that absolutely is detrimental for the defense. Because like I've talked about in previous streams, our phones have so many different apps on them, one of which is the actual map app. And if you don't fully close out of, say he used something to route at one point and he didn't actually fully exit out. I mean, right now I have my alarm clock app or whatever. That was still running in the background, for example. If for some reason one of these other apps that you have not turned off location settings on, if that may have been running in the background on Bryan's phone, even if it wasn't running, they may be able to, the prosecution may be able to actually get that data pulled from his cell service to be able to see, or from his phone to be able to see apps that have more accurate GPS location. And if they can all of a sudden, pinpoint it, because they're talking about a wider radius with these cell phone towers. I mean, come on, Pullman and Moscow are only 10 minutes apart anyways. So if we're talking about a 20-mile radius, I mean, he wasn't at the Pullman Regional Airport. I mean, if he's pinging, I mean, that's within 20 miles. So I think that they're going to be able to get more accurate GPS data. And if for some reason, here's the house right here. Let me find it. Why am I not? Here we go. Here's the house right here. If for some reason, in between now and June 26th, they're able to get accurate information that his phone, when he turned it off, he was sitting in front of this whatever Targhee Hall, and then all of a sudden his phone is off. Why would he be right here, right? So I think that they're going to be able to get GPS data that puts him much closer than where the current cell phone pings that are very obscure and within a 20-mile radius are currently putting him. So yeah, there's holes in the defense in that way, right, or in the case right now, because of that. But it's still a suspicious thing. Was his phone turned off on other occasions? Because we know the next day after the homicides took place, his phone was turned off for a 3-hour period. So is the prosecution going to say, hey, where in the weeks leading up to this had he turned his phone off? Was that a thing he did often? Because you'd have to explain for that. I don't turn my phone off hardly ever, so it's not a common thing that I do. So for it to just turn off once at the time in which they think the murders took place, and then the next day for a 3-hour period, that seems like he was trying to not give away his location. So they're going to have to explain that, right? Bryan says, didn't he show up on their Wi-Fi? We have no idea. I don't know if he would show up on their Wi-Fi. If he had never gone to their house before, there would be no reason for him to automatically connect to their Wi-Fi. Was his car financed? If so, the dealership usually puts GPS trackers on them. That's an interesting point. I have no idea if his car was if it was financed.
Cell phone dump, and then you're going to have GPS location the second it gets turned back on. That's not in the affidavit of probable cause. It's certainly through the 60,000 plus pages that'll be generated from a forensic review of his cell phone. So certainly it's more evidence that you're going to be looking at. Again, there's a lot of things. Like I said, it's a little, I'm saying it contradictory that it's a strong circumstantial, but there's holes. I anticipate those holes to grow smaller when the prosecution puts their entire case on it and collects all their evidence, but maybe not. I don't know. But there are certainly holes in the case, and the affidavit of probable cause is just a start. We're in the infancy of the case, and I really do pretty much bank on the Commonwealth. Well, I say Commonwealth because it's Pennsylvania, but the prosecution coming up with more evidence, obviously.
So as realistic as that lawyer was being about saying, he did see holes in the initial probable cause that could eventually be exploited by a good lawyer. He is also being very realistic in saying that those holes will likely shrink over the next several months as the prosecution builds more evidence against him. Real quick, we're going to tune in from Bryan Enton outside the courtroom. Obviously, he was just in there for the hearing. He wasn't able to live tweet, wasn't able to do anything substantial, but now he's tuning in on News Nation. So let's just listen to what he says. I'm sure it's going to be kind of a repeat of what we've already heard, but better to hear from the people that are on the ground.
Good morning, Marnie. Yeah, it was a very, very quick court hearing. I would say just about 10 minutes or so. And we learned that they are going to have a preliminary hearing, which is a big deal, but it's not going to be until June 26th. So almost 6 months from now. So we are likely not going to learn much more about this case until June. The lawyer for Bryan Kohberger basically saying that they did want to have the hearing, but they needed time to go over all the details of the case. And the prosecution and the defense agreed that June would be a good time for that. They estimated that this preliminary hearing that starts in June will last anywhere from 3 to 5 days. And again, it's going to be significant, Marnie, because at the preliminary hearing, the way the law works here in Idaho, more evidence will come out and both sides will be able to question witnesses. So we may hear from people we haven't heard from before, like the surviving roommate who saw the killer walk by, according to police. Take a look at this video. I believe this is video. You know, this is actually not video from today. This is from last time, because I noticed Kohberger was wearing a different outfit. You see there, this is from the last hearing last week. He was in a different shirt today. He was in a T-shirt today. When he came in, Marnie, very quiet like normal, didn't look back at anyone sitting in the audience, just sort of looked straight ahead, answered the judge's questions. And it was short, and things will sort of be at a standstill, at least for the public, until mid-June, Marnie.
Bryan, inside of the courtroom, were the families present this morning? What was the composition of the folks who were allowed in?
Yeah, the families were not there from what we could tell, because last time they were in the front row and we didn't see any family members this time. I'm told that Kaylee Gonzalez's family decided that they were going to watch this on Zoom. It was just too much for them to be here today. I mean, you can imagine how emotional it is, Marnie, because it's a small courtroom. So where they sit in the front row, they're very, very close to Kohberger, just a couple feet away, which is obviously extremely overwhelming to be that close to the man accused of killing your loved one. We're also told that the prosecutors have been in constant communication with the families. So basically they update them and let them know, look, this is going to be a significant hearing. We think you should be there, or this is going to be a short hearing, really just a scheduling hearing. And that was the case today. Very, very short. They just wanted to schedule this preliminary hearing. So the indication is the prosecution let the families know, like, hey, it might not be worth the hardship and the emotional toll of coming today. We'll just keep you posted with what happens.
Bryan, describe what Kohberger looked like, how he acted, any characteristics that stood out to you about his appearance this morning, different than when we saw him the first time in the video people are seeing now?
Yeah, so this is actually now the video from today, Marnie. And again, I can tell because of the T-shirt. I noticed that he was wearing a T-shirt today. So this is just from about a few minutes ago. So he looked forward the whole time, as you see. That's his public defender who did most of the talking. Didn't look back at all. Seemed a little fidgety when he first came in, but basically it had the same sort of vibe that he did the last two other times that I saw him, the last time here in Idaho and the first time in Pennsylvania. His public defender did most of the talking, explained that she had already reached out to the prosecution and that they agreed on this June date. And then the judge basically had to question Kohberger and make sure that he was okay with waiving his right to a speedy preliminary hearing, because the way the law works here in Idaho, you're supposed to have your preliminary hearing within 14 days of getting arrested. This is obviously going to be 6 months out, so the judge had to get on the record with Kohberger that he was okay with waiving his right to a speedy preliminary hearing.
I don't want to put the cart before the horse here, Bryan, but if and when this goes to trial, is there any discussion yet about a change of venue?
There is discussion, not officially in court at this point, but everybody's sort of talking about it in town. because it seems like that could be a very real scenario that both sides could possibly agree on. I mean, this is a very, very small town. It's a college town. A lot of people knew the victims or were somehow connected to the victims. Almost everybody is connected to the university. So, experts that we've interviewed really on both sides, defense attorneys and prosecutors, have said it might not be a bad idea to move the trial to perhaps a place like Boise.
Another step in what will be a long process. Brian Entin in Moscow this morning. We have learned now that a preliminary hearing will take place in June for Bryan Kohberger charged with 4.
Okay, so that's a little bit of an update from Bryan Entin and Marnie from News Nation. Obviously touching on will this get moved to another location in Idaho? I think there's a strong chance it will, but we'll just have to wait and see. I see some of your guys' comments about the surviving roommate, and we'll just call her DM for the sake of this. We've been calling her DM. Whether or not Bryan saw her or not, I think that's like what I think happened, and I don't want to assume that this is exactly what happened, but I would imagine that Bryan was there for a very specific purpose, and that his purpose was not necessarily to take 4 people's lives. I think that wasn't, this is just my opinion, I don't think that was his purpose. I think if I had to guess, I think that one of the upstairs 3rd floor roommates, one of the 2, was a target, or both. We don't know. So when he came up here and found 2 people in the one bed, it was likely a bit of a surprise for him. Or it wasn't. Maybe he was expecting to find 2 people, and maybe I don't know. I think one of the 2 here could have been a target. And I know that's difficult to talk about, but it's just my opinion. And I think what ended up happening is he came back downstairs and possibly rounded the corner, seeing Xana, who may have just sat down her trash from her Postmates delivery that just came in right before, or maybe she was eating in the kitchen. We don't know. Maybe she was eating the burger or whatever she got in the kitchen, and then all of a sudden she's confronted with this guy who maybe is holding the knife still, or maybe has blood on him. We don't know. And maybe she, maybe the noise that Dylan in this roommate, or DM in this roommate, heard him saying, everything's going to be okay, or, whatever he said. What does it say in the probable cause affidavit? He says something like, I'm going to, what does he say? She says, she hears, there's someone here. And then he says, I'm going to help you. She hears, it's okay, I'm going to help you. Possibly that could have been her, interaction with Bryan or whoever did this in the kitchen. He could have said, oh, look, I'm going to help you. And then maybe she ran into the bedroom where Ethan was at. And then all of a sudden he's chasing her in there because that's a surviving witness that saw probably more of him than what he was comfortable with. He runs into the bedroom to kill Xana, and then all of a sudden Ethan is either awake in there or on his way, in the process of going to sleep, and is awoken by the sound. And then all of a sudden he's just got another person that he's like, oh my goodness, if he wasn't there intending to kill 4 people, all of a sudden he has at this point. And even if he rounded this corner and saw or heard DM in the crack of this door, there's a chance that this guy was just physically exhausted at that point and was not willing to, or was not able to, take another person's life. I mean, we have no idea, but I would imagine if he had the energy and he absolutely knew that there was somebody else that saw him, he probably would have taken her out as well, because that is just a risky thing to potentially be seen by somebody, or even be chased out of there and have a photograph taken of you leaving. Because my guess is he didn't see her, and even if he did, he would have been so physically exhausted, maybe he just decided to dip. Because look, the surviving roommate could have easily taken a photo and ran out and taken a photo of him getting in his car and leaving. I mean, so we just don't know. I mean, I just think that he was so exhausted at the point that he was out of there. He did not intend to take 4 lives. And look, it's probably pretty exhausting at that point. I know it's a pretty quick thing. They have a pretty quick timeline on the event. They think it happened, between 4 and 4:20 or 4:05 and 4:20. So that's just my opinion. I don't know what you guys think. Beverly, how many nights I went out in the night to check a barking dog in distress? I'm sorry, there's no way. What are you talking about, Emperor? What do you mean? There's no way. Just what's your opinion then, my friend? It's like we can have opinions here. How is there no way? What are you referring to? What are you referring to? There's just no way. There's absolutely a way. Any possibility is a possibility. Like anything you can think of could be a possibility. Bryan says, I don't think he saw her. That's your opinion. I think that I agree with that. I don't think he saw her. But if he did, there's a chance he was just too exhausted. That's my opinion. But what are you speaking about, Emperor? I'm interested in your opinion, but like just to say that there's no way, I think is irresponsible as well. We can speculate on it. We can talk about, all the different possibilities, but just to have a matter of fact, there's no way, that's not, I don't know. Anyways. Okay. We're going to listen to the rest. I'm going to see your guys' comments going through. We're going to listen to the rest of these conversations that Bryan Enton had with, I know we bounced around from this, but with his, public defender in Pennsylvania.
From Kohberger, where he, said that he was innocent, essentially. Did you write the statement with him? I don't know if you can share how that statement came about.
The statement came about Friday night when I talked to him. I to understand, on Friday, we were closed, we had a half day. So I knew I wanted to plan out sort of the attack of what I wanted to get done. What I know I needed to have get done because of the media exposure I anticipated with the case. I didn't expect it to be like this. I didn't expect it to be more, I've been told by the AOPC, which is court administration, that really more calls than were on Cosby, they were calling about this. So I sort of got a heads up of what to expect. So I sat down in my office at 12 noon on Friday, and I wanted to plan this out as to what I wanted to get done. Two things that I felt most important is making contact with the Idaho Public Defense Commission, obviously talking to Bryan as soon as possible, getting a statement out based upon my conversation with Bryan, obviously, talking to the family and getting potentially another statement out. And really from noon to approximately 4:30, I took time to search relevant Idaho law, in reference what Bryan would expect upon extradition and returning back. So then I went out to the jail at 5 o'clock. I know there was a lot of people, a lot of news media outlet at the jail at that time, but I knew it was dark out, so I could essentially sneak in under the cover of dark and be able to talk to him without anyone knowing that I was actually there. And I spoke to him for about an hour. I let him know about the statement, that I wanted to get a statement out there because with all of the news media, I knew there was going to obviously be issues as far as him receiving potentially a fair trial, people jumping to conclusions. Automatically you worry about the presumption of innocence and the integrity of the criminal justice system. So I said, Bryan, is it okay if we get a statement out? And that's when he brought up the eager to be exonerated language. And obviously that was included in the statement.
So that was him. That was him who wanted to put that in.
The eager to be exonerated was the language he used. We put it in the statement. But obviously when I talked to him about the eager to be exonerated, to me, when we talked about it, it was more or less he was asserting innocence, but that's the language he used.
Wow. So I always thought that the public defender just gave that statement and just said, my client is eager to be exonerated, so on and so forth, because that also is a pretty common thing. Obviously, they're not going to say, oh, my client is incredibly nervous and doesn't want to go back and defend himself and so on and so forth. But it sounds like that was literally from the mouth of Bryan. I mean, he had stated that he was eager to be exonerated, and he wanted that included in that. Let's see. Emperor, let me find your message. He said, we are talking about someone who has stalked these people, right? Yes, potentially. That's another thing we just don't know. If you're talking about, there's just no way, you're speaking in big words like that, or in broad strokes like that of just, there's no way. It's like, well, we don't know entirely. I mean, there's rumors that there was a potential stalker of, I think, Kaylee's. Is that Bryan? We don't know, but there's a possibility. We do have potential evidence that he was in that location 12 times in the lead up to the homicides. That is pretty damning evidence if that's true. And if they can pinpoint that GPS data to be like, say, across the street from the house, those 12 times, then yeah, that would probably indicate that he was absolutely stalking the house and potentially all the people that are in it. But once again, we don't necessarily know that those 12 times he was in that area, he was absolutely stalking it. Do I think he was? Probably. I think that if he was pinged 12 times in the lead up, he was likely casing the joint. And just like you said, what I'm saying is that if he cased a place, he would know how many people lived at the residence. Yeah, for sure. Why wouldn't, if he was casing the place, why wouldn't he go into all the rooms then? You know what I mean? I think it's one of those things. I think that there's definitely different scenarios that could have played out. Maybe he wanted to take out everybody. Maybe that was his goal. And maybe he didn't just happen upon Xana awake, and then all of a sudden he felt the need to eliminate her. And then same thing with Ethan. We just don't know. I don't think we ever will. Then again, who knows? But yeah, I agree with you. I think there's a lot more to it for sure. We just don't know his motive. But if he was certainly stalking the place, he may have known how many people live there, but that doesn't necessarily mean he intended or thought that they were all there at that specific time. All right, we're going to listen to the last one of these News Nation clips here. Wander, it's a mountain of evidence. At this point, it's a mountain of evidence, and they haven't even gone through the entire collection. Summer Wells. I saw Summer Wells. Where's the Summer Wells comment? Why do I not see it? Oh, Melissa, Aaron, will you do another live on Summer Wells? That's a good question. I think it would be really cool to do another live on Summer Wells, and I actually have some plans for that. So it's interesting that you mentioned that, Melissa, because yes, I plan on revisiting the Summer Wells case in an effort to just get her name out there again, because even though there appears to be no movement in that case, I think it still deserves its own video to just get her name back out there. So yes, Melissa, in the coming weeks, I plan on doing something around the Summer Wells case. So hopefully there can be some more movement on that soon as well. Thanks for asking, Melissa. Another thing, the no signs of forced entry, that's interesting. That makes me think, did he come in right after the Postmates delivery happened and knock on the back door or knock on the front door and say, hey, I'm the Postmates guy, you forgot something, and then just forced himself in? Because clearly he didn't break the glass door, the sliding glass door. He didn't, pick a lock or whatever. There's no signs of forced entry. So there clearly was some level of thought that went into this. Or he just knew that they kept it unlocked often. I mean, I don't know. Maybe that was the case too. Cheyenne, I didn't realize you covered Summer Wells. I need to look into your videos. Yes, there is a playlist on my main page called Summer Wells. I believe most of the videos that I've done and live streams that I've done on the Summer Wells case are on that playlist. But yeah, just go back in the previous videos. We talked about Summer Wells for a considerable amount of time. That was kind of the main story that we were following for months and months. So that's a horrific story. All right, let's go ahead and release or play the rest of this. It is interesting though that there aren't, the CRZ, no ambulances. Oh, hold on, sorry. Oh, no ambulances. These people were deceased. Yeah, there weren't a lot of photos from the actual day that law enforcement arrived there though. All right. Anyways, let's watch the last of these interviews with his Pennsylvania public defender.
Do you think that Kohberger can get a fair trial here? in Moscow, Idaho?
There is no way he can get a fair trial in Moscow, Idaho. I don't know if he can get a fair trial in Idaho.
Just because of the attention, you think, or?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, due to all the media news outlets, the attention it has gotten. I mean, you're talking about an international case now, and really a social media is also an issue here. I mean, this is really one of the first cases. I mean, you had the Patino, I think Patino is correct. I'm
Petito, yeah, Gabby Petito, yeah.
The Gabby Patino case, I mean, that had something like this, but I mean, my understanding about this case specific, I mean, this has blown up on social media to a point where most people ages of 18 to 25 have actually posted comments on it. So I'm not on social media. I don't believe in social media. People are too free to express their really views without repercussions, to say. And in this case, a lot of people have already expressed either guilt or innocence, and really neither helps either the prosecution or defense. Because, I mean, listen, at the end of things here, and I want to make this very clear and important, and the family would really make this clear and important. Listen, there's 4 families suffering from loss, right? I mean, they will never get their loved ones back, and they want justice, okay? But we want to make sure, everyone wants to make sure that the right guy is the one that they have at trial and the one who ultimately is convicted. Whether that ends up being Bryan or not, I can't say. The evidence will ultimately come out at trial. But the important thing is that he's presumed innocent until proven otherwise.
And just my last question, there's the hearing tomorrow morning, the status hearing, where they'll talk about the possibility of a preliminary hearing. It's my understanding the defense can waive that. Do you think there should be a preliminary hearing? I mean, if this was your case now, is that in his best interest?
Well, I mean, my understanding is it is going to be a status hearing. I had watched the initial arraignment, and I know that his attorney Taylor had requested for a status hearing, but I believe the judge listed it for a preliminary hearing. So I was a little bit confused also, but I think it's been verified that it is just a status hearing tomorrow. And I absolutely anticipate there to be a very long preliminary hearing at some point, whether that happens tomorrow or in the future. I would anticipate a preliminary hearing based upon the affidavit of probable cause. Okay. And if I circle back just a little bit, the one thing that I didn't address was the shaky ID by DM in the affidavit of probable cause. I would, without doubt, say that is at best a shaky ID that any defense counsel is going to have a field day with on cross-examination.
What do you mean by shaky ID?
Well, first of all, it's not an ID of Bryan Kohberger. It's an ID of a person who has an athletic, non-muscular build, approximately 5'10", with bushy eyebrows,
right,
wearing a mask. It's dark, obviously, likely. I'm assuming it's dark. We won't know until DM actually testifies. But really, when you think about it, that's the only direct evidence allegedly putting Bryan at the scene, if it's Bryan who's ID'd. So certainly, I can't say that it's a direct evidentiary link to Bryan, and I certainly think once examination occurs of DM, there's going to be real issues with even using her testimony.
I mean, the direct evidence is the DNA as well, and I know that it's not. It's DNA transfer. We don't know the exact. The knife sheath is a big deal, but there's likely other DNA that they haven't talked about that they have at this, like, we're talking, I mean, we don't know if he had his gloves on, if he had gloves on, if he had gloves off. Like, he clearly touched the door. Like, guys, there's probably a mountain of his DNA that is there that they are able to collect, especially now knowing who their main suspect is. They know, like, what they're looking for, essentially, but also his car, right? Like, even if he tried to clean his car to the best of his abilities, thinking he knew exactly what he was doing, they can cut into the seat and they can find stuff that he thought he had scrubbed away that is absolutely there. There's no way that they don't have just even more potential evidence than what they've had already, or what they've shown already. Chelsea, yeah, I'm definitely going to probably cover the Delphi case tomorrow. So yeah, stay on the lookout for that. I'll probably be live streaming that. Very interested in what the Delphi situation is led to and what we can expect from that. So I will definitely be doing that. And then, of course, like I said earlier, I'm going to be revisiting the Summer Wells case for sure as well. But I know there's not much movement there. Touch DNA on sheath button and bushy eyebrows won't cut it in court. Yeah, I mean, it definitely won't cut it in court, but there's not just that, DJ. We have the cell phone data, the pings from the towers and the lead up. We have the other mountain of DNA that I'm sure that they have at the crime scene that will cut it in court, because the defense is going to have to explain why is your DNA all over this house? Why is your DNA, and this is potentially, but why is your DNA underneath the fingernails of 3 of the 4 victims, whatever the case may be. We just don't know yet. So yeah, I mean, obviously right now that there is potential holes in this case, but we just don't know. There could be a lot more, and there likely will be a lot more that comes out very soon. Talking Thrones, DM did not pick him out of a lineup. People have to stop making things up. I had heard that they did that, but I don't think that that's been confirmed. So yeah, I think that we can't run with that as fully fact at this point. Let me read some of your guys' comments. Vivian, gotta go. Vivian, hey, thanks for being here. We're nearing the 2-hour mark, so I'm probably going to be wrapping things up soon as well. I thought about doing phone calls, but I really don't know what else there is to talk about. If you want to call in, let me know. I may open up the phone lines for like 1 or 2 calls, but maybe not. We'll just have to see. I'm going to read some of your comments. Due to the dynamics of the crime scene alone, there would absolutely have to be a lot more DNA. Exactly. Also, I saw someone say that they got into the true crime stuff through the Chris Watts case. And that Chris Watts case is pure evil, what he did to his family. Absolutely insane. Exactly. We don't know the real facts. Due to the doubters, he's in jail. He left his DNA at the scene. Nobody else did that. Nobody. I mean, there's definitely other DNA at that scene, right? It was a party house, so they have to rule out tons of different DNA profiles, but they have a lot of reason to believe that it's him. Neither are you. What are you referring to, Talking Thrones? Who are you responding to? Neither are you? I don't know what you're talking about. Way in the beginning, they were talking about one victim was more brutally attacked. Yeah, and once again, I don't know if that's been confirmed, but allegedly that's the case. I mean, we just don't know. Yeah, Darla, another good point. We don't know what they found at his house, right? The computer is going to reveal a lot, right? Like even things that are deleted from hard drives. I was reading a whole thing last night on this of people being able to go in and actually recover deleted data. So even if, for example, he deleted a bunch of information on his computer the day before he went and allegedly did this, they could sometimes go back and recover information that is deleted from a computer. So there's definitely a lot. There's definitely a lot that they probably have from that computer. So Street, okay. Aaron, the sheriff said one victim had defensive wounds. Mohawk Mom, I think that was said early on as well, but I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, I mean, if likely that's the case. I mean, in a stabbing, death by sharp object situation, I mean, it's pretty common to have defense wounds. Yeah, the search history is going to be fascinating and would likely reveal a lot. I mean, if he was, who knows what he was looking up that could be incriminating. Yeah, I'm not going to open up the phone lines, guys. I'm just going to read some more of your guys' comments and wrap things up. But I am not surprised that today went the way that it went. I mean, this is what people were expecting, that it would be a quick status hearing that sets a date far into the future. And that's what we got. I can't wait to hear motive. Yeah, I mean, we may never know the exact motive, but I think that what they're going to come up with, it's going to be like an idea. Like, let me see if there's this Reddit post talks about motive here. Let me find it. Also, apparently, the Mad Greek is not a vegan restaurant, so I don't know. But this post about the motive, this person says on Reddit, we will likely never know the motive / target or targets of the murders. BK will take that to his grave. This is their theory. They say BK is going to maintain that he was innocent and not involved in this. I do not think he would be the type of person to spill the beans, even if convicted. All we can do is speculate. My belief is that one specific girl was his target, either abduction or murder. Abduction being the reason, maybe because he kept his car close by, and the others happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. This is, once again, just this Reddit poster's theory. The wrong girl was in the bed of the intended target, therefore she was an impromptu casualty. Unfortunately and coincidentally, another girl had received a DoorDash order and was eating when she noticed a back door open, which prompted her to say, "Someone's here." BK realized someone else was awake and had to make sure he got them also so they didn't run away and call the cops. Having to also kill her boyfriend, be safe as if he was the most immediate physical threat to him as a male. Being that he was on the other side of the house, I don't think he saw the DoorDash driver, because if he knew someone was awake, I think he would have held off on doing it that day. That's another good point. Maybe he didn't see the DoorDash driver. Maybe this was just a pure coincidence. Beverly, Aaron, do not be absent from true crime on YouTube. I mean, I'm going to be as involved as I can be and what my schedule will allow. Beverly, thank you. This person says, I think, so I'm not going to read the rest of that, but this is what I was getting at, is that during the court case, during the trial eventually, I think we're going to get enough evidence for us to pretty much make an educated guess as to his motive, even if he never confesses. Once again, kind of what you guys are talking about, I think he'll never admit it, but his computer and phone forensics will give the public a pretty good idea of his why. So, I mean, you know, even if they were able to obtain a lot from his hard drives and his computer that point out this being a premeditated, situation of him planning this over the course of several months, so on and so forth, it's safe to say that he was fixated on this situation or on a particular victim or person, and he eventually snapped. We can probably come to some sort of conclusion, even if he never specifies his exact motive. Of course, we would like to know his motive so he can be studied, to know like what happened in this guy's brain to do this, but I don't know that we'll ever know. Lisa says, did Papa ask a question about motive on Reddit? I'm still convinced it's him. You know what, Lisa, we're going to actually go through this because people have been talking about these potential posts online, both on Facebook and Reddit. And let's just go ahead and listen to this video about the potential posts that could have been Bryan. I don't know what you guys think about this. Do you think that this may have been Bryan posting? I'm gonna play this in just a moment. Talking Thrones, do you think Bryan was able to avoid cutting himself during the crime since they've only mentioned his touch DNA on the sheath? Maybe they're holding on to that info. Oh, absolutely. I mean, we don't know entirely if his hands were cut. I know when they had the traffic stop along their trip back to Pennsylvania, a lot of people think that his hand appeared to be cut or somewhat cut in this video. It's hard to see. This is, I don't know if this is the one, but people obviously zoomed in on his hand and thought that it looked like maybe right here he had some sort of a scratch or a cut, and this would have been a couple weeks after the murders, obviously, so even a really fresh cut would take some time to heal. So I think there's certainly a possibility he cut himself, and that's something that they're holding on to.
Analyzing the Reddit posts of a particularly savvy follower of the Idaho murders, who it sure seems may have had firsthand knowledge of the crime. Joining me now are retired FBI Special Agent Jennifer Koffendorfer, forensic psychologist Chris Mohandi, and trial lawyer Trent Copeland. Welcome to all three of you. Jennifer, I want to begin with you because as I've been reading these, I find very disturbing posts, almost braggadocious, as though this person knew exactly what happened in that house well before the affidavit told us some things about that house. I also felt like there was a similarity in the attitude and the writing style between the Facebook poster named Papa Roger and the Reddit poster named Inside Looking. Is that just me, or do you see that too? Because you look with a whole other set of eyes.
Well, there definitely is a similarity. Just as you said, in their style and their confidence, in their details, in details that indeed, in many instances, only the killer or the police would know. So from those standpoints, yes, you hit the nail on the head.
And if that's the case, they become a lot more evidentiary. I would assume, Trent, that all of a sudden, if I don't have the tools that the FBI has, the things that used to be in Jennifer Koffendorfer's suitcase are magic. They can subpoena ISP information, et cetera. But Trent, do you see that as something that could be just manna from heaven for prosecutors? If they can link accounts from Facebook to Reddit that brag about all these things and they're accurate, and they were well before that was made public, is that just sort of like, it's almost a smoking gun?
I think it is. And look, here's what's important. Not just that it was braggadocio, not just that it was, he had a keen interest in the case, but if it can be established that from the timing and the sequence that he knew things and he was, publishing things on Reddit as these various people that he claimed to be in these chat rooms, if that can be established, Ashley, that he knew these things before police knew them, before they were publicly available, then those things are huge from an evidentiary standpoint. And so this reminds me a lot of, the BTK killer. Remember him, Ashley? It was his bragging. It was him mocking the police. It was him sending floppy disks to the police about the crimes that got him arrested. And that was his undoing. So these things can have enormous evidentiary value. These things, killers of this nature tend to want the attention. They tend to want to be the smartest person in the chat room, so to speak. And in this instance, this could very well be another linchpin in addition to the DNA, in addition to the cell towers, in addition to all the other things that the police currently have. This could also be one other thing. And as you say, Ashley, it could really carry the day.
Yeah, I remember that moment where BTK said in court, just so matter-of-factly, every little detail, as though we were all just little pieces in his game board. And it was just joy for him to just hold us all in his grip for as long as it took him to spill out those vile details. I hope we don't have that in this case, but in the same sense, I hope we do, so we get the answers. But that's your, that's your bucket, Chris Mohandi. There was something else that Inside Looking wrote. I'm just going to read it out here. It says, all I'm saying is that the killer is not a registered SO, which is sex offender. I would bet all my chips on that. Not an SO came up in so many other posts. It seemed like he was fixated on that. And of course, what happened later? The police said this isn't a sex crime.
Right. Well, again, it's possible, that a killer like this will, taunt in whatever methods available, whether it's a, Zodiac style, taunting that we saw using newspapers and so forth, or, some other forum like social media. It's also possible that, there's just other people out there that are arrogant and braggarts and so forth. But certainly narcissism is going to be a key feature of this kind of individual. And there was a certain pride that was in that statement of knowing with degree of certainty that would be consistent if indeed it's learned later on.
Thank you for watching. Go to News.
So yeah, I don't know about that last one about the SO situation, but certainly like this Papa Roger comment or poster that was on Facebook and I think Reddit as well, or maybe the insider person was on Reddit. Things like this from back in November, like late November, which is only a couple weeks after the crimes. Like this is, I mean, this could just be purely coincidence, them saying like because of a large fixed blade knife, it led them to believe they found the sheath. I mean, that's a little bit strange because we know now that they ended up finding the knife sheath from what they believe is probably the murder weapon. But once again, I don't know. It could just be purely coincidence that they found it. Once more, there's this video about Bryan's neighbor as well. We didn't watch this on the last stream.
Tonight, in an exclusive interview, a neighbor in the Pullman, Washington apartment building of suspect Bryan Kohberger says Kohberger spoke to him about the murders. The neighbor asked not to be identified.
He brought it up in conversation, asked if I had heard about the murders, and which I did, and then he said, yeah, it seems like they have no leads. It seems like it was a crime of passion. At the time of our conversation, it was only like, a few days after it had happened, so there wasn't much details out.
Also tonight, the search warrant for Kohberger's Washington apartment has been sealed temporarily. A judge saying the details could, quote, prematurely end the investigation and create a threat to public safety. Meanwhile, just 6 miles away at the University of Idaho, students are returning to class today for the first time since Kohberger's arrest. Many, like freshman Madeline Pollock, expressing relief.
I was kind of glad to see a lot of cops around, just in case something did happen, there would be there. But it feels very relieving and knowing he's behind bars.
Kohberger is charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of students Kaylee Gonsalves, Madison Mogan, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin on November 13th. And he's due in court tomorrow.
So yeah, anyways, that neighbor, kind of an interesting little thing there. Obviously doesn't want to be seen, but it's like one of those things. There's a gag order on this case, but even in the next 5.5 months, I imagine we're going to have more situations like the person who went on a date with Bryan many years ago. I know I haven't talked about that, but there was somebody that went on a date with Bryan. Iked Mel did a great video on that. If you guys want to go check that out. But I think there's going to be more situations like that in the coming months leading up to the actual preliminary hearing that are able to give us a better idea of who Bryan is, maybe potential motive, maybe something will slip. Hopefully nothing in the prosecution that the prosecution gathers will slip up, because obviously we want them to have the most airtight kind of case going into the trial. But I imagine we'll have more people coming forward that knew him. Lissa, yeah, she said he told her that she had great birthing hips. Yeah, that's a weird thing to say to someone, especially on like a first date. Like, I think people could joke if you're like, maybe engaged with somebody and you like say some weird things like that. But it's like for somebody on a first date with somebody, going on a first date, and you go back to their house after a movie and he was like trying to tickle her and stuff and like saying she had great birthing hips. Like that's, I don't want to say that that's, cause for being on the sus bus, but that's definitely a weird thing to say. We don't want to put him prematurely on the sus bus, but he's there now. All right, what's everyone saying? Guys, if you haven't already, we have 370 in here, 408 likes. So we have more likes than people in here. I know some people have dipped off, but if you guys haven't already, hit the like button if you've enjoyed this stream, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and tap that bell notification to be notified when we go live. I definitely am going to continue to look into this case, even though we have the next 5.5 months. Maybe I'll try to get somebody to come on the show that knows a bit more about the judicial process, or even just forensics in general. I know I've gotten to speak with a couple of people through the process of making my documentary. So maybe I would be able to get somebody to come on the show and talk a little bit more about what goes into, the lead up to a big case like this that could be interesting and beneficial. Once again, this is Bryan this morning, just a couple hours ago, at his preliminary hearing, waived his right to a speedy trial. So they are pushing this and extending this as long as they can, in order to probably try to get the best defense in line for him when they do go to trial. He showed up today with some scratches on his face. Obviously, he's probably still being held in isolation, so likely these are just probably from a bad razor, because he probably did shave. He's still clean shaven, so I assume that he tried to shave and just scratch himself. Some people are saying he looks even skinnier. I mean, I don't know. I think he still looks pretty. I mean, he's always had a pretty sunken in face. The lighting also may be casting more of a shadow on this side of his cheekbone, so he looks similar to me. I don't think he looks like he's lost a substantial amount of weight. My question is, in the next 5.5 months, are they going to put him on any sort of medication? Obviously, he had said that he's physically fit or whatever to go to trial, or whatever they said. He had no issues mentally or whatever, and it's like sometimes we see people come back months later for their preliminary hearing or their trial, and they like balloon up because they've either been given a bunch of medications, or I imagine the food in jail isn't the most healthy. But it'll be interesting to see what he looks like in 5.5 months when a bit of time has passed. No bulletproof vest is what makes him look smaller. I mean, that's another thing that, he's not wearing any sort of vest right now. So you definitely are seeing a thinner looking version of him. But in general, I think he looks pretty similar. Hungry Helmet, that would be great. Oh, I don't know what I said for you to say that would be great on, but great. Video Rally, Susbus, LOL, immediately my new favorite channel on this topic. Hey, thank you. I just added the Susbus to the lineup of different scenes that are available, so I'm glad that you enjoy it. It's a short bus. What do you mean it's a short bus? This is a big bus, man. We're all on it. There's 373 seats on this bus. You guys are all sat behind me on the Susbus. It goes back real far. Oops. Okay. But yeah, anyways. So yeah, that's basically it. We're at the 2-hour mark. I think we're going to probably just end things here. I don't know really what else to add. I was going to open up the phone lines to, see what you guys think, but we'll probably do another stream. Obviously, we're going to do another stream to kind of talk about, like, once we've had a moment to think about this entire case as a whole, like, what are our thoughts on it? Like I said, I might be able to try to get some people, some experts to show up and chat with them in the lead up. Obviously, this story is likely going to slow down a little bit, but you can still expect to see videos on this channel. If you haven't already and you'd like to follow me on Twitter or Instagram, that is my handle. If you ever want to send me any information to talk about in a future video, that is where you're going to want to send that to me. DM me on Instagram, DM me on Twitter, and if you have some interesting things to look into, I can always pull that up on a future stream. Of course, we want to say thank you to the mods for being here. There have been a few of the mods that we have here. Alexa's here. I know that Angela was here earlier. Alicia has been in and out throughout the stream. Thank you to all the mods that show up and help create, not necessarily create, but keep the chat going and keep it sane. Keep people in line with what our mission is to just have constructive conversations about this case and future cases. The mods do a great job, and thank you to the mods, and thank you to Cheyenne for following me on Instagram. Like I said, if you haven't already, like the channel, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. We got some people following on Twitter. Thank you for following me. Canuck. Oh, Canucks. Nice. But yeah, thanks guys for joining me on this stream. Like I said, we're gonna be tuning in with the Delphi coverage tomorrow. Hopefully, we have some more information on what that case is gonna look like in the future. I need to really dive back in on that to see where that's all from. Aaron, where's your cup from? That's a good question. Well, the brand of cup is this. Can you read that? Brewmate. But what's interesting about this cup is that it matches almost to a T. Look at this. Look at this. This is not on purpose. This was a gift, but it literally is like my background on YouTube. This is like my banner. Look at that. It's like the different mountains. It's almost like exact, like the color scheme. So I was going to change my banner, but I was like, you know what? This is like my new mug that literally is like matching the branding of the channel. So this is like spot on. But yeah, Brewmate is the brand. I don't know if you can see that, but yeah, or I guess that's over here. But yeah, it's a really cool mug. It's like keeps my coffee hot. I don't really ever close this, but it's got a magnet. Man, we're just going to sell these mugs. I use this one for coffee and this one for water. So, but yeah, I thought that was really cool that it kind of matched the YouTube banner. But yeah, looks like your Facebook cover pic. Oh, nice. Talking about birthing hips as if he will be sticking around to raise a child when he is too busy breaking into people's home to stab them. Yeah, very strange indeed. Okay, guys, that's it. I'm rambling. I'm going to end the stream now. Thank you guys so much for being here. Hopefully we will, like I said, hopefully I'll see some of you guys in tomorrow's stream covering the Delphi case. But this is not the last time we'll be talking about Bryan Kohberger and the Idaho case, but we will definitely be taking a slight break from it as we are probably going to get a little bit less information in the coming weeks, but we'll be here to cover it when we have more information. So yeah, I love Brewmate. I got like 4 of them. Oh, nice. Very cool. All right. Thanks again to everyone for being here. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.